The energy firm Quadrilla is hoping to begin fracking for shale gas in Lancashire later today. The work involves pumping liquid underground at high pressure to fracture rocks and release natural gas. It'll be the first time the process has been tried since it was linked to two small earthquakes near Blackpool 7 years ago. Richard Lister reports.
This drilling rig in rural Lancashire is now the front line for fracking in the UK. After years of debate, delays and demonstrations, work at the Quadrilla plant has now restarted, but the protesters haven't stopped. They blocked the road next to the site this morning. The atmosphere, though, was subdued. Those here believe fracking is a danger to those living nearby and the wider environment.
I feel quite angry that they're forcing this on us. You know, we don't want it. There's no social licence. We just want them to go away.
We really don't need it. It's going to be harmful to the climate, it's harmful to health, it's harmful to the land. It's just pointless.
Fracking involves drilling first vertically, then horizontally, before pumping water, sand and chemicals at high pressure into shale rock, which has gas trapped inside it. When the rock fractures, the gas is released and brought to the surface. It's a technique perfected in the United States and now accounts for 2/3 of US gas production. Energy prices have fallen as a result, but is more reliance on fossil fuels in anyone's long-term interest?
The growth in renewables has been welcome, but it's been confined to the electricity sector, and we still use pretty much gas for all of our heating. So if people want to heat their homes, and a lot of people cook their food with gas, we're going to need it for many decades to come.
Quadrilla says fracking could also create thousands of jobs, not just here, but in sites around the country. And it insists the environmental risk, particularly from earthquakes, is extremely small. Police cut two protesters free from the tyres they'd cemented themselves into outside the site today. This battle over fracking isn't over. Richard Lister, BBC News.
Let's go to our correspondent Danny Savage, who's at the site in Lancashire for us now. And as we were hearing there, protests were always going to be expected.
Simon, they are, and they continue this lunchtime at the moment. You can see behind me over my shoulder at the moment this white van that's parked across the entrance to the Quadrilla site here. That was put in place early this morning by protesters. Two of them have strapped themselves to that van at the moment. One of them's on a horizontal board right on the top of two ladders, and you can see the scaffolding that's off to the right there, the side of the van. That's what the police have brought in, and they'll soon be up there. They've already had one look up there already to try and get that man down, get that entrance cleared. It won't stop, though, what's happening behind the fences here at the Quadrilla site between Preston and Blackpool. Fracking is due to start again today after a break of 7 years. It hasn't started again yet. We understand that they're still calibrating machinery and doing their preparations, but it will start again today. We'll probably hear it when it does. But in the meantime, the protests continue. They believe that the wider point is that fracking is still not good for the environment. The companies, though, say it's absolutely safe and there's a potential for energy in years ahead. Simon.
Danny Savage, thank you very much. Well, the resumption of fracking comes as ministers launch Green GB Week, an initiative to encourage companies to turn away from coal, oil and gas to protect the climate. So how does that square with today's announcement? Our environment analyst Roger Harrabin reports.
Coal burning is climate enemy number one, so Britain's become a global leader in tackling climate change by phasing out coal for power generation. Now scientists say a huge expansion in wind and solar power is needed to stabilise the climate. We must stop burning coal, gas and oil, their report said last week. The Climate Minister has taken notice.
I'm going to be asking today, formally, our Committee on Climate Change, for advice on how we get to the net zero target by 2050, and a part of that advice will be to help me understand the costs that might be associated with it. Well, obviously it's going to be a range, because then I can start to think about what does the government need to do, what does the private sector need to do, and how could we collaborate around the world to try and drop the costs of some of the most important technologies.
So will the UK really reduce emissions to zero as scientists want? One low-cost option is planting trees to soak up the CO2 we produce, but the government is missing its targets for new woodlands. Sales of electric cars are lagging too, and ministers made that worse by cutting subsidies only last week. What's more, the government is expanding Heathrow. It's promoting fracking, as we heard. It's freezing fuel duty. It's scrapped solar subsidies. And it's cancelled zero-carbon homes. Campaigners wonder if ministers are really serious about ending the use of fossil fuels. Roger Harrabin, BBC News.